Hi everyone. In Polish we say cześć wszystkim. As you can hear, Polish language is not an easy one. It's Tuesday and it's time for the new video. Today I'm going to give you another tutorial with 5 practical tips that will make you work in Lightroom easier, and at the same time you won't get frustrated because of simple mistakes that I and many other photographers have made when starting out with Lightroom. Without further ado, let's jump into Lightroom and get started with our first tip. We are right now in Lightroom in the Develop module, and here is the first tip. It's related to something what is called solo mode. Solo mode is the way the panels which we use to develop our raw files, to process our raw files, behaves when we are working with them. So normally, by default in Lightroom, those panels, when you go from one to another, are expanding, and as you can easily see, the more panels you open, the longer this list is, and you have to scroll to find the right panel to work with it. It's very difficult, especially, or very tricky to work efficiently with all the panels expanded, especially if you are working on the small screens like the screen of my 13-inch MacBook laptop. However, it can be also difficult to work on the bigger screens, like here in front of me I have my BenQ 27-inch monitor, and again, if I expand all the panels, I see at one time two and a half of them, so it's still difficult. And here comes the solo mode. So to activate the solo mode, you just right click on one of the panel and then select from the menu the solo mode. And right now what you can see, all the panels collapsed and only one panel, which is called details in that case, remain expanded. Then when I go to color grading, the detail panel again collapsed and the color grading panel is expanded, and it's the same with all the panels. So as you can see, it's much more efficient to work with just one panel expanded instead of all of them or few of them expanded, because then they start to cover the full screen, and you have to scroll through them to find the right one. Except the solo mode, there is one more tip related to the develop panels which I would like to share with you. By default, Lightroom is presenting those panels to us in a certain order. In practice, it also means that Lightroom suggests that our workflow should look like the order of these panels. So we should go from the top, which means basic panel, to the bottom, which means calibration. But for many of you, this workflow basically won't work. For example, I prefer to do my lens correction as a second step after the basic panel. So if you, like me, would like to change the order of these panels, or in some cases disable some of them, which I don't believe will be useful, then you can do it simply in the Develop module. Basically, you need to click with your right mouse button on any of the panel and then select the Customize Develop panel menu. Once you are here, you have a new window, and from here you can either disable one of these panels, or you can basically change their order. Just take the panel and move it to the position in which you would like to have it. You can always get back to the default order and have the panels in the standard order as proposed by Lightroom. So let's say that I want to have my lens correction section just below the basic panel. Then I can move it, click Save, and after I will relaunch Lightroom, you will see that the panels are already in the different order, and the lens correction panel, as you can see right now, is right now my second panel instead of fourth or fifth. The next tip I have for you, even though it's simple and kind of obvious, will potentially save you from a lot of headache and stress related to Lightroom catalog management. What I mean by that? In practice, if you want to change anything in your Lightroom catalog structure, you should do it within Lightroom and not outside of Lightroom. Let me give you an example. So here I have in Lightroom my Lightroom catalog, which is called 2021 raw files, and then under this Lightroom catalog I have different folders, and one of them is called margin. If I jump to my Finder, because I'm working on Mac, in case you are working on Windows computer, it will be Windows Explorer, I have exactly the same structure as you can see here, and here I have exactly the same structure, so you can easily compare it. And if I would like to change the name of this folder in Lightroom, which is called Marcin, to something different, very often people will do it outside of Lightroom. And let me show you what happens. So when I click here on this folder and I change this name to Marcin Old, let's do it this way, and I will jump back to Lightroom, you can easily see that right now you have this question mark, which in practice means that Lightroom has lost the connection between the Lightroom catalog and the folder structure on your disk, on your hard drive. So instead of doing this like I just show you, I will go back and change the Marcin Old to Marcin. And right now, if I will be in Lightroom, everything is correct. So if I would like to change this to Marcin Old, I should do it in Lightroom. And let's see what happened then. I will select the rename menu, and I will put, instead of Marcin, I will put the new folder name, which will be Marcin Old. And I will save it. Right now, as you can see, everything is okay in Lightroom. I don't have this question mark icon next to my folder icon. But then, if I jump to my Finder folder structure, then I see that the new folder name is Marcin Old. If I will go back to Lightroom and change it again to Marcin, to revert back the change, and we'll jump then to my folder structure on my NAS server, then you can see it's again Marcin. So anything you want to change in Lightroom, moving folders from one to another place, changing their name, or even changing the file name, or copying some file from one folder to another, you should do it within Lightroom, not on your hard drive. Remember, otherwise you can easily corrupt your Lightroom catalog and have a lot of issues to fix it later. With my fourth tip, I would like to help you to save some disk space while working with your Lightroom catalog. Let me explain. Just for a moment, let's jump to the Lightroom Classic menu and then to catalog settings. And as you can see right now, there is a tab which is called File Handling, and then we have a set of settings for something which is called Preview Cache. What does it mean in practice? Basically, every time you go to the Develop module and start editing your picture, before you start doing it, Lightroom in the background is creating the preview file, which is stored on your hard drive. And depending of what are those settings, these preview files can be smaller or bigger, and by that they can take more or less of your hard drive space. So in my case, as you can see, the total size of preview cache is above 100 gigabytes. And in practice, my standard preview is 2880 pixels, then the preview quality is medium, and I automatically ask Lightroom to delete all the one-to-one previews after 30 days. But what does it mean in practice, really? So for a moment right now, let's jump to my hard drive. And as you can see, I have 3 different folders. In each of these folders, I have one Lightroom catalog. The one which is in 2021 is the catalog which is opened here. And all my previews, all my files are stored in so-called previews.rr data file, and as you can see, it's 108 gigabytes. That's the space which all my previews take from my hard drive, from your hard drive. So how we can save this space? Of course, we are not working on all of our raw files every single day. So the raw files, let's say from beginning of 2021 or 2019, if they are stored in the same catalog, we are looking at them just from time to time. So there is no need for Lightroom to keep these preview files all the time. So the easiest solution to save your space, in my case 108 gigabytes, is to basically delete the preview file. Don't delete any other, but just delete the one which has in the name previous. To prove it, let me show you one thing. Instead of deleting, I will change its name by adding the old at the beginning of previous, and then I will close my Lightroom for a moment and I will reopen Lightroom. As you can see right now, here is the old.alr data, but when I start Lightroom now, exactly in the same Lightroom catalog, the catalog still works perfectly, nothing happened. So if I click through my folders in Lightroom, you can see I don't see the previews yet. Those previews are generated right now, and especially the better resolution previews are generated when I jumped from library module to develop module. And if we go right now to my Lightroom catalog on hard drive, you can see that I have new file which with the name previous, and this file is much smaller than 108 gigabytes. It's just 150 megs, not gigs. And you can easily see when I start to click through all the files I have in my catalog, this previous file will increase its size. So instead of 150, right now it's 181 megabytes, not the gigabytes. So right now it's 210 because Lightroom is regenerating the preview for every single picture once I go through them. So if you want to save some space, feel free to delete from the folder where you store your Lightroom catalog, so ALR cat file, feel free to delete the file which has in the name the word previous, and then it has an extension ALR data. My fifth and the last tip for today is about duplicates in Lightroom catalog. To explain how it works, I will insert this memory card into the card reader and will show you in Lightroom the details. You can right now see that Lightroom started automatically the import dialog box, and basically I have all my I have all the previews of my raw files which are stored on the memory card, but as you can see, majority of the previews are grayed out and I cannot select them. Only 4 of them can be selected, and it means that I can import only 4 raw files into my Lightroom catalog. Why that? Lightroom, once you are importing any files, JPEGs or raw files, once you are trying to import them into Lightroom catalog, it checks if those files are already not existing within your Lightroom catalog, and it works only if this checkbox "Don't import suspected duplicates" it's selected. If you uncheck this box right now, Lightroom won't check if the files are already existing in your Lightroom catalog and will allow you to import all the files which you are on your memory card. So depending on the situation, if you don't want to import duplicates into your Lightroom catalog, just check this box and Lightroom will check the duplicates for you. If you, for some reason, for any reason, would like to import another copy of your raw files to the Lightroom catalog, just uncheck this box and Lightroom will allow you to import duplicated files. Okay guys, I hope you find these 5 tips helpful and interesting. If that's the case, please leave the thumb up, leave your comment in the comment section below, and stay tuned for the next episode, which will be available next Tuesday. See you, bye!